At the prestigious Intergalactic Academy, students from various planets gathered to learn about each other's cultures. Alien students, with their many different shapes, sizes, and backgrounds, had always viewed humans as somewhat amusing. They had heard stories of the primitive Earthlings, and in their eyes, humans were weak, unskilled, and far less advanced than the other species at the Academy. The humans, on the other hand, didn't care much for the opinions of the aliens. After all, they were there to learn, just like everyone else. However, things had taken a strange turn recently. There had been an incident during a school event. A human student, caught up in the excitement of the challenge, had made an unexpected move that led to a small accident. No one had been hurt, but the Academy's administrators felt it was necessary to impose a ban on human students from participating in certain activities until further notice. The announcement of the ban was made by the headmaster, a tall, multi-eyed alien named Zeltron. Due to recent events, Zeltron's voice echoed through the loudspeakers. Human students will be temporarily restricted from taking part in certain Academy exercises and challenges. We must ensure the safety of all students, and it is clear that more preparation is needed before humans can participate again. The alien students, who had been listening attentively, couldn't hold back their laughter. They found it ridiculous. How could a species so young, so underdeveloped, be a real threat to them? After all, they had access to technology far beyond what humans could even imagine. Many of them whispered to one another, chuckling about how the humans would never catch up with their superior intellect and abilities. Did you hear that? The humans can't even join in the basic exercises. One alien student, a sleek creature with silvery skin and 4 arms, remarked to their friend. I guess they'll just have to sit on the sidelines, watching the real students compete. Another alien, a tall being with 6 eyes and transparent wings, laughed. It's for the best. They're probably too weak to handle the pressure. They should stick to their own kind. As the laughter died down, the human students gathered in small groups, trying to make sense of what had just happened. They had been banned from participating in the very activities that made the Academy so special. It didn't seem fair, but the more they thought about it, the more they realized something important. This ban wasn't just about an accident. It was about how others viewed them, how they were seen as weak and incapable. One human, a student named Mark, stood up in the middle of the gathering. He was tired of hearing the aliens' laughter and the whispers of mockery. We'll show them, he said, his voice firm. They think we're weak. Fine, but we're not just going to sit back and let them laugh. We'll prove we can handle anything they throw at us. The others nodded in agreement. It was time to change the narrative. Mark didn't know how, but he was determined to show the aliens that humans were far more than they gave them credit for. Mark couldn't shake off the laughter of the aliens. It echoed in his mind as he walked through the Academy halls, hearing their whispers whenever he passed. The way they looked at him and the other humans made him feel small. They had no idea what humans were capable of. He knew the ban was just the beginning. The real problem wasn't the event that had caused it. It was the way humans were being treated. Alien students saw humans as lesser beings, primitive, weak, and unworthy of being part of the Academy's most challenging exercises. But Mark knew better. Humans were resilient, clever, and full of potential. The aliens just hadn't seen it yet. He was determined to change their minds, but how could he do that when everyone already thought of humans as a joke? As he walked past the training area, he noticed a group of alien students gathered around, laughing and talking about the latest exercise. Mark knew that if the human students weren't banned, this would have been a chance for them to show off their abilities. But instead, they were sidelined. Mark clenched his fists in frustration. He turned and walked back down the hall, his mind racing. There had to be something he could do to prove the aliens wrong. Then it hit him. Footage. He had a plan. The Academy had an extensive surveillance system in place, tracking all major events and exercises. Mark knew this, and he also knew that there were hidden cameras in places where the students weren't supposed to go. What if he could find footage of an alien exercise? What if he could catch them in the act of breaking the academy rules? He didn't have time to waste. Mark quickly made his way to the tech lab, where a few human students worked quietly on their projects. He explained his idea to one of them, a tech-savvy girl named Lisa. She was initially hesitant, but Mark's determination convinced her. Together, they would find the footage and use it to show the aliens that humans weren't as helpless as they thought. It wasn't going to be easy. The Academy's security was tight, and getting access to the footage would require them to bypass several layers of security. But Mark had a gut feeling that this was their chance to turn everything around. Late that night, after the rest of the Academy had settled into silence, Mark and Lisa sneaked into the tech lab. The room was dark except for the glow of the screens in front of them. Lisa tapped on the keyboard, her fingers flying over the keys, as Mark watched anxiously. They were searching for any footage that could give them an edge. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lisa found what they were looking for. There, hidden among countless other files, was a recording of a recent training exercise. It was of an alien group participating in a highly secretive and dangerous challenge that had been kept from the public eye. The footage showed the alien students taking extreme risks that could have resulted in serious injury if something went wrong. Mark's eyes widened as he watched the footage. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He knew that once the aliens saw this footage, everything would change. The next day, Mark couldn't stop thinking about the footage. He and Lisa had managed to access the secret recording of the alien students' dangerous exercise, and now he had the perfect way to turn the tables. But there was one problem. He still wasn't sure how to reveal it to the entire academy without causing more trouble. Mark paced back and forth in his dorm room, staring at the small holographic projector in front of him. The footage was ready. He could already picture the looks of shock on the aliens' faces when they saw their classmates breaking the academy rules. The very students who had laughed at him and his fellow humans would have to face the truth. Humans weren't the only ones who made mistakes. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized how dangerous this could be. The aliens in the footage weren't just breaking the rules. They were putting everyone at risk. What if revealing the footage got them all in trouble? What if the alien students turned against the human students? I have to do this, Mark muttered to himself. We can't just sit around and let them treat us like this. They need to know the truth. He had to make sure this moment counted. It wasn't just about embarrassing the aliens or proving them wrong. It was about showing everyone that humans deserved respect, that they were more than just a species to be laughed at. He couldn't let the Academy's rules define them. Mark sent a message to Lisa. "It's time," he typed. "Meet me in the main hall. I've got the footage. We're going to make them see." Lisa responded almost immediately. "Are you sure about this? If they find out we hacked into the system?" "I'm sure," Mark replied. "We're doing the right thing." The plan was simple. They would use the Academy's central viewing screen to display the footage during a major assembly. It was the perfect time. Everyone, including the alien students, would be in the auditorium. They'd all see what had been hidden from them. There was no turning back now. Mark's heart raced as he and Lisa sneaked through the hallways, keeping to the shadows to avoid the patrolling security officers. They reached the auditorium just as the assembly was about to begin. A large crowd of students filled the seats, their voices buzzing with excitement and anticipation. Alien students laughed, joked, and whispered about the new challenge that would soon take place. Mark could already feel their eyes on him, the whispers following him as he walked past. He and Lisa slipped behind the stage and approached the control panel that operated the viewing screen. Mark's palms were sweaty, but he didn't let that stop him. He connected his holographic projector to the system and pulled up the footage. His breath caught in his throat as he double-checked everything. This was it. The assembly began, and the headmaster, Celtrin, stood at the podium, preparing to address the students. Mark glanced at Lisa, who nodded at him, signaling that it was time. He pressed the button. The large screen flickered to life. The room fell silent as the footage of the alien students breaking the Academy's safety rules appeared on the screen. The risky stunts, the near accidents, and the disregard for safety were all there for everyone to see. Mark watched as the alien students in the audience shifted in their seats, their eyes growing wide in disbelief. He had done it. The truth was out. The room was eerily quiet. The footage continued to play on the massive screen, showing the alien students in action. Dangerous stunts, reckless moves, and the thrill of the secret exercise they had kept hidden from the rest of the Academy. Mark stood at the back of the auditorium, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't take his eyes off the screen. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the projector. Then the alien students started to react. A low murmur spread through the crowd. At first, it was a few whispers here and there, but then it grew louder. The alien students were starting to understand what they were seeing. Some looked at each other in disbelief, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The arrogant smiles that had once filled the room slowly faded, replaced by nervous glances. Mark's eyes locked with a group of alien students near the front. One of them, a tall, four-armed creature with shimmering scales, gasped as they watched a particularly dangerous move. Another student, a sleek and elegant alien with translucent wings, turned pale as they saw their own face flash across the screen in a moment of close danger. How did they? One of them whispered, barely audible. "It can't be real." Another alien student muttered, "This must be some kind of joke." But it wasn't a joke. The footage was real, and it was undeniable. The Academy's security had captured every detail. The risks that had been taken, the mistakes that had been swept under the rug, were now on display for all to see. A few of the alien students stood up, anger flashing in their eyes. "Who did this?" One of them shouted. "Who's behind this?" The headmaster, Seltron, looked uncomfortable at the podium. His many eyes flickered nervously as he scanned the crowd. The once confident alien leader seemed to be losing control of the situation. The students were no longer laughing. Instead, they were turning on each other, pointing fingers, and trying to figure out who was responsible for the mess they were in. Mark felt the tension in the air. The alien students had been so sure of their superiority, so certain that humans were beneath them. But now, that confidence was cracking. They were facing the truth they had tried to bury. "Shut it off," another alien shouted, waving their arms. But no one touched the controls. The footage had already made its impact. It was too late to stop it now. Lisa stood beside Mark, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I can't believe it. They're freaking out." Mark nodded, but he couldn't allow himself to feel satisfaction just yet. He had done what he needed to do, but the real work was still ahead. The footage wasn't just about exposing the aliens' mistakes. It was about showing them that humans weren't helpless. It was about leveling the playing field. Zeltron finally regained his composure and cleared his throat, addressing the now silent room. "This is a serious matter," he began, his voice calm but strained. "I will investigate the origins of this footage and ensure that all protocols are followed." But his words fell flat. The alien students were no longer listening to him with the same respect they had before. They had seen the truth, and it had shaken their beliefs. The room was filled with uncomfortable silence as the alien students sat, their heads down in thought. They weren't sure who to trust anymore. Mark felt a small victory. The first step had been taken. The aliens could no longer laugh at humans. Now, they had to face the truth. Humans were not the joke. Humans were equals. The silence in the auditorium grew heavy. The alien students were still in shock, and the tension in the room was palpable. Mark stood at the back, watching as the once proud aliens exchanged looks of confusion and disbelief. He could see the cracks in their arrogance forming, but the real test had yet to come. One of the alien students, a tall being with a crown of silver horns, stood up suddenly. He was one of the more outspoken ones, known for his confident and often mocking attitude toward humans. His voice rang out, sharp and challenging. "This is a betrayal," he said, his eyes scanning the crowd of students, looking for support. "Who would do something like this? Who's behind this?" Mark's heart skipped a beat. The room was still. Everyone was looking at the screen, waiting for someone to take charge, to fix the mess that had been exposed. Lisa leaned in close to Mark and whispered, "Are you ready for this?" Mark nodded, his mind racing. The footage had done its job. Now it was time to speak. He couldn't back down now. He had to stand his ground. He stepped forward, pushing past the murmuring students, his eyes focused on the group of alien students who had been so quick to laugh at the humans. As he walked toward them, the whispers grew louder. Some of the alien students looked at him with suspicion, while others seemed embarrassed. "Mark, wait," Lisa called, but Mark was determined. When he reached the front of the auditorium, he stood tall and faced the alien student who had spoken. His voice was calm, but the anger he had felt earlier was still there, simmering beneath the surface. "You think this is a betrayal?" Mark asked, his words cutting through the tension. "You think this footage is some kind of joke? Well, it's not. It's the truth." The room fell silent again. The alien student with the silver horns blinked, clearly taken aback by Mark's boldness. "You don't understand," the alien said, his voice shaky. "Humans are not ready for this kind of competition. You're—" "Stop right there," Mark interrupted, his voice steady. "You're right. We're not ready. But not because we're weak. It's because you never gave us a chance. You never took us seriously. You assumed we'd fail, so you banned us from participating in something that could show everyone what we're capable of." The alien student shifted uncomfortably, but didn't respond. Mark turned to face the rest of the room, his eyes sweeping over the other alien students, who were all watching him now. Some looked guilty, others just confused. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," Mark continued. "I'm here to show that humans deserve the same respect as everyone else. We may not have the technology or the power you do, but we're capable of more than you think. And we're not going to sit back while you laugh at us. We're not here to be the joke." His words seemed to hang in the air. The alien students looked at each other, some with shame in their eyes, others still in disbelief. The once proud students who had mocked the humans now seemed unsure of themselves. They had thought humans were nothing, but now they saw the consequences of their arrogance. The headmaster, Zeltran, finally spoke again, his voice firm. "Enough," he said, his many eyes scanning the room. "This is a serious matter, and we will handle it with the respect it deserves. However, I expect everyone in this room to treat each other with the same respect from now on." Mark took a deep breath, the weight of the moment sinking in. The room was still, but the air had shifted. The alien students were no longer laughing. They were thinking, reconsidering their assumptions about humans. The atmosphere in the auditorium had changed. The tension that hung in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Mark stood before the crowd of alien students, his heart still pounding from the words he had spoken. He could feel their eyes on him, their silent judgment weighing down on his shoulders. But he refused to back down now. This was the moment that mattered. Zeltran, the headmaster, had stepped back and allowed the students to process what had happened. He had always been in control, but even he couldn't deny the shift in the room. The aliens had been certain they were superior to humans, but Mark's boldness had shaken their belief. It wasn't just the footage. It was the fact that humans were standing up for themselves. "You," said the alien student with the silver horns, his voice low and filled with barely contained anger. "You have no right to humiliate us like this. You don't understand the risks we face. We are chosen to represent the strength of our people, and you're just." "I'm just a human, right?" Mark interrupted, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I'm just someone you can push aside, someone who doesn't belong here. But look at what happened. You were reckless, and now you're trying to deflect the blame." The alien student, clearly rattled, clenched his fists. Mark didn't flinch. The room was divided. Some of the alien students stood behind their fellow student, their faces hard and defensive. Others, however, were beginning to show signs of doubt. They were starting to question their own actions, the way they had treated humans for so long. Mark took a step forward, addressing the entire room. "We don't need your pity," he said, his voice loud and clear. "What we need is for you to understand that we belong here. We are capable of more than just being your sidekicks, more than just being treated like we don't matter." A few alien students exchanged nervous glances, their eyes avoiding Mark's. The laughter that had once filled the room was gone, replaced by uncomfortable silence. Mark could feel the change, but he knew it wasn't over. The hardest part was still to come. "I don't want to be your enemy," Mark continued, his words firm but sincere. "I want us all to be equals. I want us to stand together, not as different species, but as students. But if you keep treating us like we're beneath you, nothing will change." There was a long pause. No one moved. Then, one by one, a few of the alien students stood up, slowly and reluctantly. They looked at Mark, their expressions a mix of frustration and hesitation. Mark could see the internal battle in their eyes. They had never been challenged like this before. Finally, Celtron, the headmaster, spoke up. "Enough," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "This must be resolved. We will take immediate action. A meeting will be held to address this situation. But let me be clear, no one, not a single student, is above the Academy's rules. No one should be treated as lesser, no matter their species." Mark looked at Celtron, then at the alien students who had risen to their feet. It wasn't a victory, but it was a start. They were no longer laughing. They were thinking. The battle for respect wasn't over, but Mark had done what he needed to do. The aliens were finally starting to see the truth. Humans were here to stay, and they would no longer be treated as a joke. The days following the assembly were tense. The alien students who had once laughed at the humans now seemed quiet, deep in thought. Mark could feel the weight of their eyes on him whenever he walked through the halls. It wasn't the mocking gaze they had once had. It was something different now, something unsure. Some of the aliens tried to avoid eye contact altogether, while others gave him nods of acknowledgement, albeit subtle ones. But the change wasn't just in the students' behavior. The headmaster, Celtron, had announced that a series of meetings would be held to address the treatment of human students at the Academy. It was a start, but Mark knew it wasn't going to be easy. There were still alien students who believed they were far superior to humans, and they wouldn't give up their pride so easily. Mark sat in the Academy's courtyard, watching the alien students interact with each other. Some of them whispered in groups, likely discussing what had happened during the assembly. The humans, once isolated and mocked, were now part of the conversation. They weren't invisible anymore. They were being seen. Lisa walked over and sat beside Mark, her eyes scanning the courtyard. "Do you think it's really changing?" she asked, her voice unsure. "Do you think the aliens will ever really respect us?" Mark thought for a moment. "I don't know. But I know one thing for sure. We've made them think. And that's more than anyone ever expected." He was right. The mere fact that the aliens were questioning their behavior was a victory. Mark had never expected them to change overnight, but he could see the shift. It wasn't just about winning their respect. It was about opening their eyes to the reality that humans had just as much right to be there as they did. Days passed, and the atmosphere at the Academy felt different. The once contemptuous alien students who had ridiculed the human presence began to include humans in their conversations. Some even offered to partner with humans for upcoming challenges, a gesture Mark never thought he would see. It was awkward at first. Many humans were hesitant to accept the sudden shift in behavior, but it was progress. At the next assembly, Celtron addressed the students once again. His tone was serious but calm. "The Academy stands for equality. Every student, regardless of their origin, has the right to participate fully in all activities. I expect all of you to treat each other with respect from now on. There will be no more divisions based on species." The room was silent as Celtron's words sank in. Mark looked around at the faces of the alien students. They were no longer looking at humans with disdain. Instead, there was a sense of acknowledgement. Some of them even nodded in agreement with the headmaster's words. It was the first time Mark had seen such a display of unity. After the assembly, a few alien students approached Mark. One of them, a tall, slender alien with smooth skin, extended a hand. I owe you an apology," they said, their voice sincere. "We were wrong to treat you like that. We should have seen you for what you truly are, equals." Mark was surprised, but he shook the alien's hand. "It's okay," he said with a smile. "It's just about understanding each other." One by one, more alien students came forward, offering apologies and starting conversations. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As Mark walked back to his dorm that evening, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had done what he set out to do. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, and the prejudices wouldn't disappear overnight. But for the first time since arriving at the academy, Mark felt like he truly belonged. The aliens had learned a valuable lesson. True strength wasn't about technology or power. It was about respect, understanding, and treating others as equals. And that was something Mark would continue to fight for, no matter what. The days that followed the assembly brought a new sense of purpose to the academy. The atmosphere had shifted, not only among the alien students but also among the humans. The once tense and uncomfortable halls now seemed filled with an unspoken understanding. It wasn't perfect. There was still a distance between the species, but the first steps toward equality had been taken. Mark sat in the academy's main courtyard one afternoon, watching as alien and human students worked together. Some of them were practicing for the upcoming challenge, while others were discussing strategies for an intergalactic competition. Mark had never imagined that he would see the day when humans and aliens would cooperate so seamlessly. He looked around at the peaceful scene, his thoughts wandering. The alien students who had once mocked the humans were now offering tips and even asking for help. It felt like the barriers that had separated them were slowly crumbling. There was still an edge of uncertainty in the air, but it wasn't as strong as before. Lisa sat down next to him, a smile on her face. "This is amazing," she said, her eyes scanning the courtyard. "I can't believe how much has changed in such a short time." Mark nodded. "I know. It feels like a whole new academy. But it's still hard to believe they're actually treating us as equals now. I don't think I'll ever forget how they looked at us before." Lisa's smile faded slightly. "Yeah, it's hard to forget. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we had to show them how wrong they were to truly make a difference." Mark thought about her words. It hadn't been easy, and there were times when he doubted whether his actions would really lead to change. But now, it was clear that they had made an impact. The alien students were no longer dismissing humans as inferior. They were seeing them as equals, capable of contributing in ways they hadn't believed before. "I think the hardest part is over," Mark said. "But it's just the beginning, right? We can't stop now." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "We need to make sure this change lasts," Mark explained. "We've shown them that we can handle ourselves, but we need to keep proving it. Not just for us, but for every human who comes here after us. We can't let them forget." Lisa's expression softened. "I agree. We've got to make sure the next generation of humans has the same opportunities." The sound of footsteps interrupted their conversation, and they looked up to see a group of alien students approaching. Mark felt his heart race for a moment, but the alien students smiled at him and waved. "Hey, Mark," called one of them, a small creature with glowing blue eyes and smooth metallic skin. "We've been talking, and we wanted to ask if you'd join us for the next challenge. We could really use your perspective on how to tackle it." Mark stood up, a bit taken aback but pleased. "Of course," he said, his voice steady. "I'd be happy to help." The alien students grinned. "Great. We'll meet you at the training field later. See you then." As they walked away, Mark and Lisa exchanged a look of disbelief. This was the same group that had once laughed at the human students, and now They were asking for help. Mark smiled, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. It wasn't just about proving the humans' worth anymore. It was about building a future where humans and aliens could work together, side by side. The road ahead would still have its challenges. There would be moments of doubt and resistance. But Mark knew one thing for sure. Things had already changed. The respect that humans had fought for was finally being earned. And it would continue to grow, as long as they never stopped standing up for themselves. The following weeks were filled with a sense of change that seemed to ripple through every corner of the academy. What had once been a place of division was now beginning to feel more like a community. Alien students and humans worked together on projects, practiced side by side in the training fields, and shared meals in the cafeteria. The boundaries that had once seemed impossible to cross were slowly disappearing. Mark couldn't help but feel a sense of pride every time he walked through the halls. He no longer had to look over his shoulder, waiting for a mocking comment or a sneer from an alien student. Instead, he received nods of acknowledgement and even warm greetings. It wasn't just the humans who were changing. The aliens were too. But the real test came during the Academy's most important challenge yet, a competition where all students would be tested on their ability to work together in teams. The stakes were higher than ever, and the Academy was watching closely. The alien students, who had once doubted the humans' abilities, would now have to rely on them to succeed. Mark stood in the training field, adjusting his gear. He had been paired with a group of alien students for this challenge, and although the nervous tension in the air was palpable, there was something different this time. The alien students weren't looking at him with suspicion or superiority. They were looking at him as a teammate. The alien student with the silver horns, the one who had first accused Mark of betrayal, was standing next to him. Mark could see the changes in his posture. There was no arrogance in his stance now, just quiet focus. "You ready for this?" the alien asked, his voice calm but filled with determination. Mark nodded. "Yeah, let's do it." They were going to face a series of physical and mental challenges, testing everything from strength and agility to teamwork and problem-solving. Mark knew that this was their chance to prove not only to the aliens but to themselves that humans belonged on equal footing with any other species. As the challenge began, Mark found himself working seamlessly with his alien teammates. He had expected some awkwardness, some hesitation, but it never came. Instead, they moved together like a well-oiled machine. Mark offered his perspective when needed, and the alien students listened. They respected his input. It wasn't about species anymore. It was about skill, strategy, and collaboration. In one of the final stages of the competition, they had to cross a dangerous obstacle course, a maze of walls, ropes, and swinging platforms. It was designed to test both physical strength and mental focus. The alien student with the transparent wings led the group, guiding them through the maze with grace and precision. Mark followed closely behind, offering help when they needed to move a heavy barrier or come up with a new strategy to solve a puzzle. As they approached the final platform, the group found themselves stuck. They were close to the finish line, but a gap between two platforms seemed impossible to cross. For a moment, the team looked defeated, unsure of what to do. Mark stepped forward, his mind racing. "We can use the ropes," he said. "If we secure them properly, we can swing across." The alien students nodded in agreement. Together, they worked quickly, tying the ropes and securing them to the platforms. With Mark's guidance, they swung across one by one, making it to the other side just in time. They had done it. They had completed the challenge as a team. The Academy's instructors watched from the sidelines, impressed by the way the students had worked together. As Mark and his teammates crossed the finish line, they were greeted with applause, not just from the humans, but from the alien students as well. For the first time, Mark felt like he truly belonged. The competition had been tough, but the real victory wasn't the challenge itself. It was the bond that had been formed. The aliens no longer saw humans as weak or unworthy. They saw them as equals, partners in a shared mission. As Mark looked at his teammates, A smile spread across his face. This was the future they had fought for, one where species worked together, not against each other. And this was only the beginning. The weeks that followed the competition were a turning point for both humans and aliens at the Academy. The once divided students were now united by a shared sense of respect and understanding. Mark could hardly believe how much had changed in such a short time. What had once been a place where humans were dismissed and ridiculed had become a space where they were seen as equals, where they truly belonged. The Academy's halls, once filled with whispers and laughter at the expense of the humans, were now filled with conversation and collaboration. Human and alien students worked together on projects, studied side by side in the library, and helped each other during practice sessions. It was a new atmosphere, one Mark had never imagined would be possible. One afternoon, Mark stood outside the Academy's main building, looking out over the fields where he had once struggled to fit in. Now, it felt like home. The alien students he had once dreaded encountering were now his teammates, his friends. He had earned their respect, but more importantly, he had gained something deeper, a sense of belonging. Lisa walked up beside him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's unbelievable, isn't it?" she asked, glancing around at the bustling campus. "I never thought I'd see the day when we'd all work together like this." Mark smiled, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. "Yeah, it's different now. I never imagined it would happen so quickly, but I think they finally realized what we're capable of." As they stood there, a few alien students walked by, nodding their heads in greeting. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered alien with bright blue skin, waved at Mark. "Hey, Mark," the alien called, walking over with a friendly smile. "We've got another challenge coming up next week. You in?" Mark didn't hesitate. "Of course. I wouldn't miss it." The alien grinned and clapped him on the back. "Good to hear. We'll need your skills for this one. We're going to crush it together." As the alien walked away, Mark turned to Lisa, his face full of satisfaction. "It's hard to believe, isn't it? A few weeks ago, they wouldn't even have looked at us. And now, we're a team." Lisa nodded, a proud smile on her face. "It's the way it should be. But it took all of us to get here. We had to show them what we could do. And now we're stronger for it." The sound of a bell echoed through the courtyard, signaling the end of the day's lessons. Mark and Lisa started walking toward the dorms, their conversation light and easy. The future seemed bright now, full of possibilities that hadn't seemed achievable before. As they walked, Mark couldn't help but think about everything they had accomplished. The Academy had been a place of division, but now it felt like a place of unity. The humans had proven themselves, but more than that, they had earned the respect of their peers. They had shown the aliens that they weren't just weak, primitive creatures. They were capable, intelligent, and worthy of standing alongside any other species. Mark knew that the journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges ahead, but for the first time, he felt ready to face them. The road to equality had been long and difficult, but it was just the beginning, and he was excited for whatever came next. As the sun set over the Academy, casting a warm glow across the campus, Mark felt a sense of peace. He had fought for a place in this world, and now he had it.